really are very welcome here on this very special day when we're going to present the sword you've just seen being made by our good friend Hector there, and you've hopefully viewed it on the table already, and it's being presented to the Athelstan Museum, and it's been funded by the Masonic Order of Athelstan and will be later presented by the Grand Master. We have a lot of members of the Masonic Order of Athelstan, and which include the Grand Master, of course, the Deputy Grand Master and the Assistant Grand Master, and many other brethren of the Order. But first I'd like to introduce those particular invited guests and distinguished guests. We have the Lord Lieutenant for Wiltshire, Mrs. Rose Troughton. You're extremely welcome. Lady Fiona, the High Sheriff of Wiltshire, Marchioness of Lansdowne. You also are very welcome, and thank you for giving up your valuable time to come to see us today. Madam Mayor, fairly newly elected, I believe. Was it a couple of months ago? So many congratulations. Thank you for coming. Barbara Pollard. Barbara, of course, is the chair of Athelstan, first King of All England Trust, and was who narrated the previous film that was made. Hector himself is there with his wife. Hector, thank you so much for coming. Sharon Nolan is the chair of the Athelstan Museum trustees. Sharon, thank you again for coming. And on the end we have Tim Blade. Tim Blades was the man, as you saw from the film again, responsible for building and making the hilt. He's a silversmith by trade, and he finished off the sword that Hector so wonderfully made, that you saw on the film as well. I'd now like to introduce Barbara Pollard. Barbara, as I said, is chair of the Athelstan First King of All England Trust, and she's just going to now tell us a little bit about her side of things on her particular projects. Barbara.
Athelstan had a long history with Malmesbury. His kinsman, St Aldhelm, was the very first abbot at the end of the 7th century. This is one of the reasons why Athelstan made several gifts to the abbey during his lifetime, and why he chose to rest there after his death. That I was sleeping very close to where the bones of Athelstan are thought to lie. If you've been into Malmesbury Abbey, you will see a monument that looks very much like a tomb, but it's empty. And it's understood his bones are in the grounds around the outside. He was an able administrator, made many good laws to combat theft, oppression, fraud, to standardize coinage throughout the land. And he was charming, special to Malmesbury because tradition has it the men of Malmesbury fought at his side in a decisive battle against the Danes and were therefore rewarded with a piece of land known as the King's Heath, which they still own today. You can imagine the amount of influence their families, their descendant families, have had in this town over the last 1,000 years.
The Worldwide Society of Freemasonry have a direct link to King Athelstan. What I refer to is what is referred to in historic circles as the York legend. And that is that King Athelstan ordered his half-brother, Prince Edwin, to call a universal meeting of stonemasons at York in the year 926. Very concerned, and this is written in history, about the moral practices of stonemasons. Apparently they were a rowdy bunch, and stonemasons, when they were manufacturing and building Malmesbury Abbey and the great cathedrals and the great buildings that we have from that period, often stayed on a site for many years, in fact generations, and they developed a rather rowdy reputation. Athelstan, realizing this, our legend and tradition tells us, called this assembly at York in 926, and at that assembly they set down rules for stonemasons to put into their moral conduct and also into the practice of actually cutting stone. These regulations were set down in 926. They are known to us and known to history as the old charges or the ancient charges. These have travelled through the ages with us, and in the late 1600s They were laid down as the basis of the rules and regulation that governs Freemasonry to this day. The first written record of the York Assembly, Athelstan's part therein, and the charges of Masons is the Regius manuscript dated circa 1390, and most probably the author was from this neck of the woods. Athelstan's connection with Masonry, the year 926, his connection with Malmesbury, the year 937, the first written account of the gift of King's Heath, 1381, and the first written account of the gift of the stonemasons, 1390. Very interesting dates. I hope that has explained a little as to why I have the honour as Grand Master in Freemasonry to present this sword. On behalf of the Masonic Order of Athelstan, the King Athelstan Memorial Foundation, and the Athelstan First King of All England Trust, and in the memory of King Athelstan the Glorious, it gives me great pleasure to present to you, and through you to the Athelstan Museum, that sword fit for a king.